You are listening to Grab Them by the Pod, a member of the ACE Podcast Network. And welcome back, and thanks again for joining us here at Grab Them by the Pod on this very special Independence Day edition of our podcast.
Now, today is maybe your favorite day of the year. Is this your favorite holiday?
It is my favorite holiday. I feel very patriotic, very American. I love the 4th of July. It's America's birthday.
Are you wearing a very special shirt today? I know you wore one, you had a 4th of July party a few days earlier, and it said "Party Like a Patriot." What are you wearing today?
I've got a shirt today with a number 1 finger with the American flag background and 76 on it.
Awesome. You know, it's nice to know that we complain about the current state of things going on in this country, but regardless of what's going on, we still love the country. We love its history for good and bad and everything that made us who we are today. A country is more than a presidency or an administration. Am I right?
That is true, absolutely true. And you mentioned that I throw America a birthday party every year, and this year it actually coincided with what should be America's actual birthday, July 2nd. It was on July 2nd, 1776, that the members of the Continental Congress voted to break away from British rule. And it wasn't until a few days later that the document could be printed. Of course, we all know that document as the Declaration of Independence, with July 4th right in the heading. But July 2nd, also an important date in our country's history as well.
So you can come to this podcast, not necessarily just learn something about politics, but learn something about history too, although that is your background. Well, I am happy to be doing this podcast on today, America's birthday, the 4th of July, especially because we weren't around last week, and we may not be around next week either. We have some vacations going on. It is summertime, and some of us have a little more time than others to go traveling.
Well, seeing as how, the hashtag teacher life, being a teacher, I get my summers off. This is when we do our traveling. So it's all my fault. Jesse will have you know, it's my fault that my wife and my children and I like to take a little time and go experience some of the finer things in life.
And you will be going to, you're going to Florida, but you're going to be spending some time in Colonial Williamsburg. Is that right?
We're going to stop there on the way back. I went there once when I was in the 8th grade, and I don't think I really appreciated it then, and so it's on the way to and from, so we're going to stop there on the way back after spending some time with family down in Florida.
So even more history coming at us, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that when you get back. What we do have to talk about, though, are some things that happened over the last couple of weeks. It's never a dull moment in this administration. One of the biggest things that's ongoing is healthcare. Last week, we finally got the CBO report for the Senate's version of the healthcare reform bill, which they have dubbed the Better Care Reconciliation Act of 2017. To nobody's surprise, it's still horrible. 22 million people, according to this, will be uninsured, although the first House bill had 24 million uninsured. The second version had 23 million uninsured. So we're making baby steps, and maybe if we have 22 more versions of this bill, we'll get someplace where we're all going to be covered.
Better Care Reconciliation Act. I don't know if that's a misnomer or not. Is it better care? I don't think so. Not with the numbers that the CBO report score shows.
Well, it's better. We're just not saying how much better it is. Although it certainly isn't better for the estimated 200,000, a little more, I think it's like 208,000, we'll say more than 200,000 people who unnecessarily die because their health care is either going to be worse or non-existent because of this.
Oh, hold on. Don't you remember Representative Raul Labrador said nobody dies because that they don't have access to health care?
And the president did say anybody who wants it can have it, although I guess he's not lying. If you want it, you can have it. If you can afford it, that's you always have to read the fine print when it comes to some of these people. You look at this, and it makes sense that the president is so sure that that Medicaid is going to be going up, more money towards Medicaid. But if you look at, just go to the CBO webpage, click on it. Right there, there's a graph on the front page that summarizes everything, saying Medicaid is going to be cut by $772 billion. But by the way, they're going to repeal the taxes, and that's going to end up costing taxes on the very wealthy, I should add. Going to be another $541 billion. Yes, when all is said and done, we're going to reduce the deficit by $321 billion, and that's great, except for it's easy to reduce the deficit when you take away the money that's going towards health care for people who can't afford it or people who need it. So, yeah, we're throwing these people in the trash and saving money while doing it. Sounds like a wonderful plan for America.
Well, you see, it's very easy for our members of Congress to pass a bill, even with these numbers, because for them, they live off of taxpayer-funded healthcare that is very good. This doesn't affect them in the slightest. You know, to me, it's a terrible thing.
It's not just you, Kevin. It's the American people look at this. They don't like it. The CBO doesn't like it. The fake news media doesn't like it. We don't like it. Members of the Republican caucus even don't like it. But it doesn't matter because this isn't a health care bill. We've said this over and over again. Many people have said this. It's a tax bill masquerading as a health care bill. And not even the president understands that, which is so scary. It's come out that some people just don't understand what's going on with this bill. Trump doesn't believe it, though. He tweeted out last week that some of the fake news media like to say that I am not engaged in healthcare. Wrong. I know the subject well and want victory for the U.S. Well, his own party doesn't even believe that. There were reports that a GOP senator is under the impression that Trump doesn't know what the hell's going on. An aide actually said that Trump seemed confused when a moderate Republican said that those who are against this bill said it's just a massive tax break for the wealthy. Trump just gave him that weird doodle look that, I don't know what's going on. And it's really just sad that the president can't admit that, I don't know.
Well, he says he knows healthcare, the subject, very well, and he wants victory for the U.S. What does he mean, victory? He's not still campaigning.
Everything is black and white with him. It's we win or we lose. It's not like we're going to do this that's best for our country. No, we're going to win. We're going to be the best. Rah, 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 go America.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I tend to disagree with that.
And just he doubles down on this stuff. He later tweeted that if Republican senators are unable to pass what they're working on now, they should just immediately repeal and just replace it at a later date. Yeah, that's great. Get rid of it and have nothing replaced. As bad as this is, something is better than nothing. If you don't have a plan to put in place, you don't repeal and just hope for the best, because that's definitely going to be screwing people over.
You cannot say that you are for the people, that you are truly representing your constituents by wanting to pass a better bill, by wanting to replace Obamacare, by throwing it out entirely and leaving them with nothing, especially with the numbers that we are seeing of people who will be affected.
Kevin,
that is not good governance.
It's not about getting a bill that's good for the American people. It's for saying, I got rid of Obama's signature piece of legislation. I repealed something else from Obama. Obama sucks. He's not even American, blah, blah, blah.
That's exactly what it is. We've said it before, and I will say it again, that this is not about a health care bill. This is not even about a tax bill. It's about removing the previous president and his accomplishments from history for petty political gain.
And don't be petty. That's no good for anybody. This CBO score came out on my birthday, by the way, on June 26th. That was
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate that. That was a Monday, so people had a few days to kind of go through this. And the goal was to get this vote in by the 4th of July recess. Now, obviously, it's the 4th of July today. The bill did not get voted on, and that's partially because the Republican senators couldn't come together on this. We had Republican Senator Dean Heller of Nevada. He was publicly out about this, and he's actually said some things that if he goes against what he said, I can see the attack ads now from the Democrat or the Independents running against him. And these people eat their young. They God forbid they just work together. Republicans who are part of a pro-Trump group started running ads against Heller until someone was saying, "Hey, cut it out. He has an election this year. That's not going to be good for him." You have people like Shelley Moore Capito, senator from West Virginia, who should be against it because this bill kills Medicaid, and 29% of people in West Virginia are on Medicaid. It kills funding to the opioid crisis. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
To speak to that. Okay, according to John Deskins, Simon Hayter, and Clay Marsh, these are professors at West Virginia University, experts in their fields, that this will affect West Virginia's most vulnerable populace because this dire prediction is made based off of the fact that more than half of the state's population relies on Medicare, Medicaid, and the CHIP program. Mm-hmm. Okay, all of these government-funded healthcare programs is going to take it away from more than half of the people of West Virginia. And, of course, if we look at the election results, West Virginia went for Donald Trump.
I spent some time in West Virginia shortly after the election last year, and the people down there were giddy. They were cackling that Hillary had lost. I'm not trying to make them sound evil. I'm just saying how excited they were that Trump won and that he was going to make America great again, yada, yada, yada. But the things we see over and over and over when it comes to Trump's policies, that it hurts the states that voted for him most of all. When you're cutting funding or you're not going to have funding for this opioid crisis that's just running rampant through Appalachia right now, And it's going to be an even bigger mess than it is right now. It's really sad. And Trump, I won't say he's being smart about this, but a lot of these things, these cuts, these delays, they're to 2020 or beyond, so that he'll be gone. It's not my fault, or it's too late to vote for him again, or not vote for him again. And by that time, he'll just say it's fake news. He didn't do it. Whoever the next president did it.
Right. So much of this, again, is just for political gain. We've talked about it, and we will continue to talk about it, that too much of all of these policies are for political gain. They're not really what's for the good of the people.
Then you also have people, by the way, who think this doesn't go far enough. People like our good old friend Ted Cruz, who, remember, President Trump said his father was involved in the assassination of Kennedy and that his wife was crazy and ugly. We have Mike Lee from Utah. They don't think it goes far enough, so they want to keep pushing for it, even be stricter. So McConnell's going back to the drawing board. They're going to figure out what the heck they can do. Submit it for another CBO score. Who knows if they'll actually wait for that CBO score before they try to vote on it. I just fear the Senate's going to do some funky things that are legal, but not really proper or how I want to see Congress work or the Senate work. They're going to limit debate, limit amendments, because theoretically, one of the views you can do is just submit like 40,000 amendments, and then it's 10 minutes per amendment. It just goes on and on forever. It takes a while. And remember, during the ACA, there were several Republican amendments that were adopted. There were a bunch of amendments in general. So it's not like, yes, they can do it as a delayed tactic, but it also is part of the process. They have tricks that can get around these rules, and I fear they're just going to knock it down and get this thing passed no matter what it takes.
And in an attempt to be down the middle and to not show bias, it's important to point out that the Democrats have used these tactics as well when they're in control of the Senate. This is just part of the way the game is played, for better or worse.
And it's bad when they do it. It's bad if it happens now. And it's always – it's the same discussions every time, just from the opposite side. And it's going to come bite you in the butt again. It always does. But sometimes I feel they have to do what they have to do. So the question is this eventually going to pass? I kind of fear that it will. Like I said, the Trump states are going to get hit the most. But they're still going to vote for Trump again. I think – they can get this passed, and then come November of next year, they have a year and a half left to figure out reasons why they should still be voted back into office, and they'll figure out a way. It's the next 2018 election is very slanted towards the red states, and unless something crazy happens, at least in the Senate side, I don't see that changing. I think the House very well could, but
Well, it would seem to be that this is the reason why candidate Donald Trump had said that he likes stupid people. He likes ignorant people because they can play to this. They can play to people's ignorance, that they don't even realize that they're voting against themselves with the plans for policies that he had in place. He got people to vote for him, knowing full well that some of the ideas for policy that he had would hurt these people. But he plays on their fears. He plays on their, America first mentality.
And it's important to know that there is a difference between stupidity and ignorance. Now, if you're stupid, there's really nothing we can do for you. If you're ignorant, you just haven't learned the information yet. You're listening to our podcast. That's a first step you can take. Or you're just wonderful and you're listening to our podcast either way. But if you're learning something new, or if you haven't yet, go out and find more information on it. Find the truth. Find the facts. And then when you realize this is not going to be good, if you live in a red state, contact your member of the Senate. Contact your member of Congress. Contact your governor. Contact everybody. Why not? And tell them this is not a good thing and that you won't support them in the upcoming re-election because you may hate Obamacare, the ACA. Lots of people do, and there are some legitimate reasons why you may not like it. But Trump care is worse, and it's only going to be worse for you. It's going to be harder for you and your family. Don't focus on the bad parts of Obamacare. Focus on the good parts, and then go back and fix the bad parts rather than scrapping. We've said this 5,000 times. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's exactly what the Trump administration wants to do.
And as Jesse mentioned, call your representation, because there is nothing that a member of Congress or any elected official fears more than angry constituents. We see, for example, these angry town hall style meetings they've been hosting and how members of Congress have wanted to cancel those because they are afraid of facing the consequences of what their votes mean for those people back in the districts. But all this tells us is that we need to come to the middle, that there's no time for partisan politicking in a time and place like we are right now. We need to find something that's for the good of the people. You can hate, as Jesse said, Obamacare, hate Trump care, but what we need to do is find something that shoots the middle, that actually provides the most amount of benefit to the most amount of people.
And remember that constituents, the people who vote, that's the number one person they listen to, the number one people they listen to, the number group of people, whatever the proper plural term is. The problem is most of the time, and that goes on both sides, that people aren't paying attention, that people aren't doing enough, so they can just go with their party or do what they want. Make them listen to you. Make them take that first rung of importance, the people, and do what they want, because it's your life. And you guys, your life is in your own hands to a certain degree.
As a teacher of civics, I stress this to my students all the time. And the one positive that I have seen from Donald Trump's election and the first months of his presidency is that people are starting to stand up and take notice. Hopefully something good comes away from that.
All right, from one depressing topic onto another. Back in May, Trump created what he calls the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. Call me crazy. I don't trust the president with names, partial social security numbers, addresses, birth dates, political affiliations, felony convictions, voting histories, yada, 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 on people, because I think he's going to use it for his own personal gain. And how sad is that I don't trust the president with that information? But it's true.
Well, you're not crazy, and it's not sad at all, because we are experiencing, we're reliving history. This is a creation of a political hit list. We've talked before about President Nixon and his political hit list. We've talked about Senator McCarthy and the witch hunts. And for this president, who was often quoting witch hunts and McCarthyism, saying that people are going after him, well, what is this? I have a list of names.
Well, guess what? I'm not the only person that's crazy. We're not the only people that are crazy. The states feel exactly like we do. More than 20 states have declined to provide this information or part of the information, saying it's unnecessary. It violates privacy. I read yesterday, I was over your house, we were talking about Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosch. He said that this request was repugnant. It appears designed to intimidate voters and to indulge a president's fantasy that he won the popular vote, and just repeating a false story over and over again doesn't make it true. In Louisiana, Secretary of State Tom Shedler says, you shouldn't be playing politics with Louisiana voter data. Delaware Elections Commissioner says some of this information is confidential, and on and on and on. So when you have more than a third of the states saying, we're not going to give you this information because we don't trust you and you don't need this information, it's just a bad sign for the White House.
Well, our very own Secretary of State here in Connecticut, Denise Merrill, has kind of been back and forth on this, but as of yesterday, she came out and said that she's particularly troubled that the commission has made no mention at all of how it will protect those eligible for confidentiality under state law, such as those victims of domestic abuse or police officers. She actually calls the Russia meddling into our election a bigger threat and says, why aren't we doing more to investigate that, as opposed to looking at whether or not the voter registries were accurate?
We all know that the Trump White House is basically a sieve, water pouring right out of a bowl. Sometimes it gives us information that's against Trump, which, right or wrong, some of us like, but it's easy for this information to go out there. You talked about Nixon earlier. Can't you see Trump just sitting there with a list of enemies? It's kind of, you don't watch Game of Thrones, but it reminds me of Arya. She just has an enemy list and repeats it over and over and over again, vowing to destroy them. And I see him doing that time after time, because he's not interested in what's best for the country, as we say over and over again. He's interested in what makes him happy, what gets him further, and how he can destroy his enemies.
Well, and what have his surrogates, and he himself said time and time again, of how he fights back. When someone hits him, he hits back harder. He's about retribution and vendetta. He's going after people who he feels have wronged him. And so I absolutely believe that he's got a list of people who politically he doesn't align with, that he would love to destroy, if you will.
He's kind of a mashup of, you've heard sticks and stones will break my bones, but words never hurt me. And then there's that famous line, I think Sean Connery says in The Untouchables, that they pull a knife, you pull a gun. Well, he's the kind of guy that he hears bad words and he pulls a gun. He goes well over the line of how we should react to things. We'll talk about that later on. So, and he then tweeted out that numerous states are refusing to give information to the very, very distinguished, I don't know who's distinguished by in his own mind, vote. And I love how he kept the very distinguished voter fraud panel, all capitals. What are they trying to hide?
Showing his senior citizen nature of not knowing how to use tweets and how to, everything's capitalized. Don't you know that means you're yelling, President Trump?
Yeah. I want to tell him, what are they trying to hide? They're trying to hide very important information from someone who at the very best is unhinged. Oh, well, good thing that we feel so highly about the president because he's going to go meeting with Vladimir Putin from Russia next week, or this week, actually, I think it is. I'm sorry. Trump will be meeting with him at the G20 summit. And you may have forgotten this, Kevin, so I'll give you a little refresher. Back in November, Russia tried to hack our elections. And, it definitely affected the outcome through fake email accounts that are targeted towards people, hacking the DNC emails.
I heard something about that.
Yeah. But I have good news for you. Reports are saying that Trump is going to confront Putin at this meeting and take a stand in their meddling. Just kidding. That's not going to happen. He's not even going to bring it up.
He's a coward. He backs down from these situations. And we've seen it before where he has the opportunity to take a stand against someone or something like this situation and then doesn't, because he's your classic schoolyard bully. It's easy to stand behind somebody and to call names and to throw mud, but then when you're faced directly with the problem, he doesn't do anything about it.
And regardless of your political affiliation, do you think Obama, either Bush, Clinton, Reagan, who, if you had a deity in the Republican Party, would be Reagan, they would go right after Russia and call them out and not let this happen again. But no, Trump is just gonna let it slide. Hey, you know what? We do bad things too. You think we're innocent? And that's not the way to approach things. You don't give in. He's going to kiss the ring. We talk about how Trump wants people to kiss his ring. Well, he's kissing Putin's ring, metaphorically speaking, at least.
Yeah, it would seem that Vladimir Putin is the puppet master of the current administration.
We don't know what they're going to talk about at this meeting. H.R. McMaster said, there's no specific agenda. They're going to talk about whatever he wants to talk about.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll talk about ISIS being bad. He'll thank him for his fight against ISIS. The Kremlin actually said that Putin will demand the return of 2 diplomatic compounds that were seized by the U.S. Foreign Affairs Advisor Yuri Ushakov, if I'm saying that correctly, said, if you do that, it would free Russia from the need to take a retaliatory move. Retaliatory move? What? I didn't want to say they hacked our elections. They did hack our elections. They did affect the outcome, and they're afraid that they're going to have to take a retaliatory move if we don't give them back these compounds. It's insane.
Right, but, with the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, that's a non-factor. He won fair and square. There was no meddling.
Yeah. There's no report saying that they hacked into the presidential voting machines. That's not what we're talking about when we say you affected the election. But a major win this week for the opponents of the Trump administration, that courts rejected Trump's delay of an EPA rule. For some reason, the Trump White House, they back the coal industry. Makes no sense. They back delaying an EPA rule that would limit methane pollution from oil and natural gas drilling. They're on the wrong side of history on a lot of these things. Everybody else is pro-Earth. Them not so much.
No, science will prove or disprove many of the claims that President Trump and his team have made. You can't dispute fact. No matter how much you try to spin it in the media, you can't disprove fact. Fact is proven. Science proves things. And this, again, is another example of that.
I think even a lot of people out there who are not sold on global warming will probably say, though, shooting this stuff in the air is not the best thing to do if you can find a better way to do it. It was actually my old stomping grounds, D.C. The Court of Appeals in D.C. Said that the EPA did meet the requirements for a 90-day stay to stop the Obama administration's methane rule. Again, there we go. It's Obama's methane rule. Got to stop it because Obama did it.
And that's exactly it. As we already mentioned, it's erase him from history, not actually care about what's good for the country.
I guess the guy in charge of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, can maybe sue himself, sue his own agency. That's what he's really good at. It's what he did before he became head of the EPA. I don't know, but there's still work to undo other Obama rules when it comes to the EPA. They're not going to stop to get it. It's basically just an FU to Obama, like we said, and it's partially just a play to the industry because these are the guys who back the Trump administration. They want to take us back into the 80s and 90s when we should be looking towards the 2020s and what the next steps are in all kinds of technology, especially when it concerns our what is it? They keep talking about this, that a glacier the size of like Delaware is like going to break off, has broken off. Like that stuff's not good, man, and it's just going to keep happening as long as we keep delaying or opposing EPA regulations like this.
Yes, setting us back 50 years under the guise of progress and power to the American people. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Never will. But on to something more exciting, Jesse. Trump tweets.
Oh boy, there was a time where this stuff would have come first, but I said, you know what? We have to focus on the important issues first. This stuff is crazy, and I guess you could say it's important too. But why not end with a little sadness and levity altogether? So anybody, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, everybody's seen his tweets to Joe and Mika from Morning Joe. He tweeted out that he heard poorly rated Morning Joe speaks badly of him. He doesn't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ and crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around Christmas Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. This is just insane that our president is saying this. People are pointing out that he's going after a woman again, and that's bad. But the fact that the president is doing this again, people have said horrible things about Bush 43, about Obama, and none of them fought back like this because it's not what a president does. He's obsessed with women and talking about blood coming out of some of their orifices. I don't get it.
He again is acting like a child, and it leads us. We must question his mental acuity and stability. He may say that, other presidents have done things in the past, but like this is unheard of. This is unpresidential. It's unbecoming of a president, and he shows that his fitness for office is not there.
Yeah, at the very best, it shows that his temperament is horrible and that his decision-making skills are horrible because you shouldn't be doing this. This is the kind of thing where you have a warm glass of milk and go to sleep and wake up in the morning and maybe you're not quite as mad rather than tweeting stuff out. You have Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who I try not to call names. I find her to be just very vile after these recent comments too. That she just will stick up for these people. I can't say anything about Spicy because he's been kind of MIA from TV over the last few weeks. But she just points out that Trump is a fighter and this is what he was elected for, and he's fighting the fake news media. Well, it's more like he's a fighter and he's doing that with a long Southern drawl. She and people of her ilk seem to forget that he's president. You can't say that he's fighting back at the media. The media is the media. He's the president. He's the leader of the free world. He's the head of this nation. He's above commenting on this kind of stuff.
Right. It's the job of the media to be critical, to be the watchful eye, the watchdog of democracy, as the book by Helen Thomas that I recently read is all about. That's their job, to point out the faults and flaws of the president. And if the president can't take that, then maybe they shouldn't have that role.
If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And Republicans like Paul Ryan, Susan Collins, senator from Maine, have denounced it. But as you've heard repeated on different shows and different tweets, that these people just denounce his policies, but then they still support his reelection campaign, will support Trump care, support things like that. So saying that you think what he said is bad and then supporting him in every other way, that doesn't really mean anything. Talk is cheap. Show us your actions.
Tell my kids that all the time. Your words don't mean anything if your actions don't back it up.
You can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? He didn't stop there with those tweets, by the way. He said he went back and watched low-rated Morning Joe for the first time in a long time. Fake news. He called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no, bad show. Yeah, according to Joe and Mika, though, he basically, high-ranking officials from his administration came to them and basically asked him to kiss Trump's ring, and if he did so, they would kill the National Enquirer story. So it's basically that's blackmail, and it's not the first time we've heard this kind of stuff. You can go find an interview with Selma Hayek where she said Trump hit on her and asked her out, and she said no, and then he planted a story about her in the National Enquirer. So apparently, he has some sway with the National Enquirer, which talk about fake news.
Right. What does that say about the state of our presidency right now?
And he just keeps going. And it gets worse. Crazy Joe Scarborough and dumb as a rock Mika. It's not just dumb, not just low IQ. Dumb as a rock Mika are not bad people, but their low-rated show is dominated by their NBC bosses. Too bad. And then after he got criticism by the way he uses Twitter, he said, my use of social media is not presidential. It's modern-day presidential. Make America great again. So he's saying the way that a modern-day president acts is like a buffoon, basically.
Apparently, he's defining himself, making himself the poster child for modern day presidency by acting infantile.
he's really helping Obama's legacy, and he's helping whoever the next president is, because it's going to look like night and day, and just fantastic once he's gone, whether that be in 3.5 years or, God help us, 7.5 years. So he hit MSNBC, went after the Scarborough show, and then he went after CNN because, why stop there? And said the fake and fraudulent news media is working hard to convince Republicans and others that I should not be using social media. But remember, I won 2016 election with interviews, speeches, and social media. Guess what? This isn't the election anymore. You said it earlier. I said you're not running an election campaign anymore, though he is, because he's already having campaigns out there to make more money for his next run. How exciting. But you're president. You're not candidate Trump. Stop acting like you are.
Well, it's all he has. That was the last time he knew what he was doing. Well, governing is hard.
I wouldn't even go that far, by the way.
True. But governing is hard, and he's realizing that.
We see this all the time, whether it be in Congress or even at the local level, that being the voice of opposition is so much easier than being in power and ruling. You see this with the Republicans. You see this with the Democrats. It's much easier to have a voice against what's happening than to actually come up with solutions. He tries really hard to come up with these new hashtags. Most of them don't really catch on, but instead of calling it fake news CNN, now he wants to call it the fraudulent news network, fraudulent news CNN. Other than his hardcore supporters, I haven't seen that really taking off anywhere.
Most likely won't take off, because I think a reasonable, level-headed person can see through the nonsense.
What did you think of that GIF that he put out there? That it's from when he was on, it was WrestleMania or one of the WWF shows, and I think it was probably Vince McMahon, but they put CNN logo on top of Vince McMahon's face, and then he attacks it. Yeah, it's so stupid. And by the way, the newest thing out on that is, and the Trump supporters are saying it's ridiculous, that the guy who created that initially tweeted it, which then Trump took it from, has also posted racist and anti-Semitic things. No surprise there.
Right, and it's bad enough that the creator of it and the things that he has done. But again, back to whether or not he can behave presidentially, why in the world is he retweeting that? Why is he standing behind that?
Because it makes him feel like a big man on the inside. And by the way, no surprise, he's also been tweeting wonderful things about Fox News. He tweeted out praise for Sean Steele on Fox News, thanking them for the nice words, because they kiss his butt, which, whatever. The final tweet I want to talk about, and it's a separate. So yesterday, North Korea fired another missile. It was in the direction, I guess, of Japan, and that's obviously not good. We've talked about North Korea on here in the past and how Kim Jong-un has major issues, and that's something we have to be worried about. But he tweeted that North Korea just launched another missile. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life? Hard to believe that South Korea and Japan will put up with this much longer. Perhaps China will put a heavy move on North Korea and end this nonsense once for all. So first of all, he's trying to decide foreign policy for China, South Korea, and Japan. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the first part of that. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life? Kim Jong-un is a psychopath. He starves his own people. He kills family members. As much as I dislike Trump, you can't compare the two of them, and doing so is stupid and irresponsible, except for in this case, with that quote. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life? How many times have we said that about Trump when it comes to his tweeting? It really is a case of emperor's new clothes. He's clueless, and he doesn't even know what he's saying and how it reflects on him personally.
Oh, that cabinet meeting. That's all it brings to mind. Like, oh, he's so great. I love you.
Thank you for the opportunity to kiss your butt every day.
But, more importantly, Jess, just this afternoon, the Washington Post reported that this missile that was launched from North Korea towards Japan was, according to American experts, a stage 2 intercontinental ballistic missile, which puts them that much closer to being able to actually hit the United States. So if he keeps talking, if he keeps being critical of Kim Jong-un and making this type of commentary, what kind of danger or risk does he put our country in?
He's the kind of guy who writes checks his mouth writes checks that the country can't cash, and it's just really sad. By the way, I want to point out that I'm very proud of our president right now. He just tweeted out a Happy 4th of July tweet, and he didn't say anything like Happy 4th of July even to the losers and the people who didn't vote for me. So hey, you know what? You didn't embarrass us on one tweet on the 4th of July. Good for you, President.
Yeah, getting ready to celebrate the 4th of July with a big crowd at the White House. Happy 4th to everyone. Our country will grow and prosper. Big crowd, kind of like the inauguration, right?
Yeah, it's the biggest 4th of July party ever. All right, as we come to wrap things up, Kevin, what do we have for Kevin's Corner this week?
Well, Jesse, as this is the 4th of July, our fabled Independence Day, perhaps we should take a moment to reflect on what it all represents. This day represents freedom, independence, and the ideals of democracy for all of the good and bad that it might bring. We may disagree with one another on what is best for us as a nation or how to move the country towards progress, but alas, we are still Americans. We still share this day that reminds us of our past, present, and future, of where we have come from and where we are about to go. Those of us that favor the policies of the president and the Republican leaders of Congress stand tall, salute the flag, and say God bless America. Those of us that feel at a loss under the current administration, raise your heads just as high, salute the flag, and continue to push towards the changes that you wish to see. We are all Americans. We are all in this together, and on this sacred of all days, let's remember it is not your country or my country, it is our country, for better or for worse, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it makes you feel good, almost as good, Kevin, as the rumor coming out that the next Creed movie is going to have Creed against Ivan Drago's son, so we can see United States kick the butt of Russia just one more time.
Oh, man, can't wait.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for listening to another episode and sticking with us. If we're not back next week, we'll be back soon after. Stick with us. It'll be worth the wait. You can go to our website at www.grabthembythepod.com. You find out links to social media, to wherever you can find our podcast, whether it be iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube, and even our Patreon account where you can give us $1 or $2 or maybe even more and get some really fun prizes back. But until next time, it's been fun, Kevin. Thanks so much.
Later.